"I love you," said the rancher. "Then why didn't you touch me?" whispered the young Apache woman. Samuel's ranch stretched wide under the endless sky of the American Southwest. The sun rose slowly over the dusty hills, painting the land in shades of gold and red. Samuel had grown up here, learning to ride horses before he could walk properly and to tend the land with care. Life was not easy. It was hard work every day from dawn to dusk. The ranch was large, but Samuel worked it mostly alone, with only a few hired hands who came and went with the seasons. He liked the solitude. It gave him time to think, to watch the stars at night, and to feel connected to the land he loved. But on this morning, as Samuel led his horse down the winding path to check on the cattle, he noticed something unusual near the creek at the edge of the property. A figure moved gracefully among the trees and rocks, bending occasionally to gather something from the ground. At first he thought it was a deer or some other animal, but as he drew closer, he realized it was a young woman. She moved with a quiet strength, her steps sure and deliberate, yet soft on the ground. Her long dark hair caught the sunlight, and her clothing, simple but made with care, told him she was not from the town nearby. Samuel stopped a little ways off, unsure whether to call out. Something about her presence was different. There was no fear in her eyes as she glanced in his direction, only a calm curiosity. Samuel decided to approach slowly, raising a hand in greeting. "Good morning," he said, his voice steady but careful. The woman looked at him and smiled faintly. "Good morning," she replied, her voice soft and melodic, carrying a calmness that made Samuel feel strangely at ease. There was something in the way she spoke, in her posture and the careful way she carried herself, that told him she was wise beyond her years. "My name is Samuel," he said, tipping his hat slightly. "I own the ranch nearby. Are you lost?" The young woman shook her head. "I am Yana," she said simply. "I am not lost. I am with my family nearby." Her words were clear and honest. She did not speak with fear, nor with the hesitation of someone who might be in danger. There was a quiet dignity in her voice that intrigued Samuel. Samuel nodded, unsure of what to say next. He had not spoken much to anyone outside his town in years. The local people respected him, of course, but few knew him well, and he had never met anyone like Yana. He wanted to ask more, to understand where she came from, but he did not want to startle her or offend her. Instead, he nodded again and spoke carefully. "It's a fine morning. The sun is high and the land looks ready for work." Yana glanced toward the hills, following the line of his gaze. "Yes," she said softly, "the land is strong, it gives and it takes. One must respect it." Samuel felt a shiver run through him. It was rare to meet someone who spoke with such understanding of the land. Most people in the town only saw it as property or work, but Ayana seemed to see it as alive, almost like a living friend or teacher. He wanted to ask her more, but he realized she was already starting to walk away. "I should go," she said. "My family waits." Samuel hesitated. He wanted to say something that would make her stay, even for a few more moments, but the words did not come. "Of course," he said finally. "Be safe." Yana nodded and disappeared behind the rocks, moving with a quiet grace that left Samuel watching long after she was gone. That morning, he returned to his work on the ranch, but his mind kept drifting back to the young woman at the creek. There was something about her presence that lingered, a sense of calm and strength that he could not forget. Over the next few days, Samuel found himself walking along the creek more often, hoping to catch a glimpse of Ayana again. And slowly, almost by chance, their paths crossed again. This time, Samuel spoke first. "You are back," he said, trying to keep his tone light though his heart raced. Ayana turned to him, her eyes calm and observing. "Yes," she said, "the land is my home too, in a way. One returns to it." Samuel nodded, understanding more than he could express. They walked together along the creek, not speaking much, but comfortable in each other's presence. He watched as she showed him how to recognize certain plants, which were good for food and which were dangerous. She taught him small things about living with the land, about respecting it, about noticing its rhythms. For Samuel, these moments became a new kind of learning. He had worked the land all his life, but Ayanna showed him details he had never noticed. The small movements of birds, the subtle changes in the soil, the quiet sounds that spoke of water nearby, these things became part of his daily awareness. And in her presence, he felt a warmth he had not known for years. Ayanna, too, seemed to find a strange comfort in Samuel. He was not like the other men she had seen from the nearby settlements. He did not rush her or speak with judgment. He listened, he observed, and he moved through the world with patience. And though she was cautious, aware of the delicate balance between her people and the settlers, she began to trust him in small ways. Days turned into weeks, and their meetings became more frequent. Samuel would bring small gifts, an apple, a piece of bread, a handmade tool, simple things that showed his thoughtfulness without overstepping. Ayanna, in return, shared knowledge of the land, of how to gather safely, of where the water ran purest, of which herbs could heal simple wounds. They became partners in understanding, friends who relied on each other for insight and companionship. The local townspeople began to notice Samuel's new habit of wandering to the creek more often, though few knew why. Rumors circulated quietly, but Samuel did not care. He was drawn to the connection, to the calm strength and wisdom that Ayanna brought into his life. He learned patience, and he learned to appreciate the silence between words. One afternoon, as they both rested under the shade of a large cottonwood tree, Samuel finally spoke more openly. "I do not know if this is proper," he said carefully, "but I am glad you are here. I have not felt this way before with anyone." Ayanna looked at him quietly. She did not answer at first. Instead, she watched the light shift through the leaves, the way the shadows danced across the ground. "The world is changing," she said finally. "And people must find a way to meet in it, even if it is difficult. I am glad for this time as well." There was an understanding between them that did not require more words. They both knew the world would not make their connection easy. There were boundaries, histories, and fears that could not be ignored. Yet in that quiet moment, they simply existed together, two people from very different lives, finding a fragile harmony by the creek. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Samuel walked Ayanna back to the edge of her territory. "Until tomorrow?" he asked softly. Ayanna nodded, a small, sincere smile on her face. "Until tomorrow," she said. Samuel watched her disappear among the trees, feeling a strange mixture of hope and longing. That night, as he sat by the fire in his cabin, he thought about the young woman who had entered his life so quietly, and yet had changed it so completely. He realized that sometimes, connections were not about words or actions alone. They were about understanding, respect, and the willingness to see someone fully, even across the boundaries the world had set. And so began the story of Samuel and Ayanna, two souls from different worlds, finding common ground not through force or demand, but through patience, trust, and the simple act of showing up for one another. Little did they know, this friendship, humble and quiet as it seemed, would grow into a bond that neither could have imagined at the first meeting by the creek. Days passed, and the bond between Samuel and Ayanna grew quietly but steadily. Their meetings by the creek became the highlight of Samuel's days. While the ranch work was demanding, and the cattle needed constant attention, he found himself looking forward to the moments when Ayanna would appear among the trees, her presence calm and reassuring. The ranch felt larger and emptier when she was not there, and the sound of the wind through the cottonwood leaves seemed to whisper her name. Ayanna, too, felt the pull of these encounters. She had learned to move carefully, to respect her people's traditions, and to live with caution around the settlers. Yet there was something different about Samuel. He did not demand, he did not rush, and he never tried to change her. He simply listened, watched, and shared his own life in a way that was gentle and honest. Over time, she began to look forward to his visits as well, feeling a rare comfort in his presence. One morning, as the sun rose pale and warm over the horizon, Samuel arrived at the creek with a small basket of fresh bread and a few apples he had picked from the orchard. Yana was already there, kneeling beside a patch of wild herbs, her hands moving carefully as she sorted leaves and flowers. The smell of the herbs mingled with the fresh morning air, creating a sense of peace that Samuel had never known before. "Good morning," he said softly, keeping his distance but smiling. Yana looked up and nodded. "Good morning. The herbs are strong today. The land is good." Samuel placed the basket down on a nearby rock. "I thought you might like some bread, fresh from the oven," he said. "And some apples, sweet and crisp." Yana's eyes softened. "You are kind, Samuel, thank you." She accepted a slice of bread, breaking it carefully and tasting it with quiet appreciation. Samuel sat beside her, though he remained careful not to crowd her space. They shared the morning in companionable silence, listening to the birds and the gentle rush of water over rocks. After a while, Yana began to talk, telling Samuel stories about her family, her childhood, and the traditions of her people. She spoke of the importance of respect for the land, the wisdom passed down from elders, and the small lessons learned from daily life. Samuel listened intently, asking questions when he did not understand and marveling at the depth of knowledge she carried. "Your people have a close connection to the land," Samuel said at one point, breaking the silence. "I have worked this ranch all my life, but I do not think I have ever truly understood it the way you do." Yana smiled gently. "It is not only work, Samuel, it is balance. The land gives, but it can take. One must observe, listen, and learn. You do not have to take all at once." Samuel nodded, realizing that her words were true not only for the land but perhaps for life as well. He had always rushed, always focused on labor and productivity, but Ayana showed him a different rhythm, one that included patience, awareness, and harmony. Over the next weeks, Samuel and Ayana spent more time together, exploring the land around the creek and the ranch's edges. Yana taught him to recognize plants by sight and smell, to notice subtle signs in the environment, and to move quietly through the forest without disturbing animals. Samuel shared with her the daily work of the ranch, how to care for the cattle, mend fences, and understand the weather's changing signs. Their lessons were different but complementary, and in each other's company they discovered joy in learning. Their friendship, however, was not without its challenges. Some of the townspeople began to whisper about Samuel's frequent trips to the creek. There were hints of disapproval, and Samuel sometimes felt eyes watching him as he worked the ranch. Yet he continued, quietly ignoring the murmurs, because the connection he had with Ayana mattered more than gossip or judgment. Shiana, for her part, was careful as well. She could not forget the expectations of her people and the history of tension between her tribe and the settlers. She moved with caution, always aware of boundaries. Yet she felt a trust growing in Samuel, a respect that allowed her to share small pieces of herself with him. She began to laugh more easily, speak more openly, and even allow herself moments of quiet joy that had been rare in her life. One day, Samuel brought a small wooden carving he had made during a quiet afternoon on the ranch. It was simple, a small horse, carved from a piece of wood he had found near the creek. "For you," he said, offering it to Ayana. Ayana held the carving carefully, turning it in her hands. "It is beautiful," she said softly. "You made this?" Samuel nodded. "Yes. I thought of you when I carved it. The horse reminds me of freedom, and you have a spirit like that, strong and free." Yana's eyes softened. She had not expected such a gift, and the thoughtfulness behind it touched her. "Thank you, Samuel," she whispered. She placed it carefully in the basket beside her herbs, as if it were something precious. Their days became a pattern of quiet companionship. Sometimes they spoke for hours, sharing stories and learning from each other. Other times they sat in silence, simply enjoying the presence of another soul who understood them. Samuel began to notice small changes in himself. He felt lighter, calmer, and more aware of the beauty in the land and in the moments he often overlooked. Iana, too, felt a shift. Her heart was guarded as it had to be, but she discovered the comfort of having someone who respected her, who listened without judgment, and who valued her knowledge and presence. She had felt alone for much of her life, caught between traditions and the changing world, but Samuel's quiet friendship offered a new kind of hope. One afternoon, as they walked along the creek, Iana suddenly stopped. She picked up a smooth stone and tossed it into the water. "I am glad for this," she said quietly, "for this friendship and the time we share." Samuel stopped beside her. "I am glad too," he said. "I have never known a connection like this. You have changed how I see the world, Iana. I do not know how to explain it fully." Iana looked at him, her eyes calm and steady. "Some things cannot be explained fully, Samuel. Some things are felt. We learn by being together, by noticing, by understanding. You feel it, do you not?" Samuel nodded slowly. "Yes, I feel it every day I am here with you. Every day I see your smile, hear your voice, or watch you move through the land. It feels right." They continued walking, their steps in harmony with the soft rhythm of the creek and the gentle rustling of the trees. Samuel realized that this connection was more than friendship. It was a bond of trust, respect, and understanding that transcended the boundaries of their worlds. Yet he knew he had to be patient. Iana's heart was cautious, and he could not rush her or force anything. He could only be present, offer respect, and allow their friendship to grow naturally. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Samuel walked Iana back to the edge of her territory. They paused, neither speaking at first, simply watching the colors of the sky reflect on the creek. "Until tomorrow," Samuel asked softly, his voice careful but hopeful. Iana nodded, her gaze steady. "Until tomorrow," she said. Samuel returned to the ranch, feeling the warmth of the day linger in his chest. The connection he had with Iana was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was patient, quiet, and full of mutual respect, a friendship that had the power to change him in ways he had not imagined. That night, as he sat by the fire, Samuel thought about the lessons he had learned from Iana. About the land, about trust, and about seeing someone truly for who they were. He realized that the world could be harsh, judgmental, and unforgiving, but within these small moments by the creek, there was a place of peace, understanding, and growth. And so, part 2 of their story was marked by deepening trust and friendship, quiet lessons, and shared experiences that brought them closer without rushing or forcing the natural bond they were forming. The days ahead promised new challenges and emotions, but Samuel and Iana were ready to face them together, one step, one shared moment, and one quiet understanding at a time. The days grew warmer as summer approached, and the land shimmered under the relentless sun. Samuel's ranch seemed busier than ever. The cattle required constant attention, the fences needed repairs, and the fields demanded his full focus. Yet, no matter how demanding the work became, Samuel's thoughts often drifted to Iana. He found himself noticing the smallest things, the way her hair caught the sunlight, the careful way she moved, the gentle way she spoke to him. These observations, simple as they were, brought him an unexpected warmth and a sense of anticipation that colored every day. Iana, too, noticed changes in herself. She had always been cautious with strangers, especially settlers. Her family had taught her that trust was earned slowly and respect was everything. Yet Samuel was different. He did not ask for more than she was willing to give, nor did he ever press her for personal details she was not ready to share. He was patient, attentive, and quiet in his understanding. She found herself thinking of him during the day, recalling the small kindnesses, the shared moments, and the quiet laughter that had begun to fill the space between them. One afternoon, As the sun hovered high in the sky, Samuel walked toward the creek, carrying a small bundle of supplies. He had mended a few fences in the morning, and the rhythm of work left him contemplative. When he arrived, Ayanna was already there, seated on a flat stone, carefully arranging freshly picked herbs. Her presence was calming, a quiet contrast to the heat and hard work of the day. "Good afternoon, Ayanna," Samuel called softly, approaching with a cautious smile. Ayanna looked up, her eyes meeting his. "Good afternoon," she replied, her voice steady. There was a subtle warmth in her tone, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond that had grown between them. Samuel set down the bundle beside her and opened it to reveal a small collection of items: freshly baked bread, a few apples, and a carved wooden whistle. "I thought you might like these," he said. "The whistle, it is for listening. Sometimes you can hear more than just words when you play it." Ayanna's eyes softened and she reached for the whistle carefully. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "You make things with care, Samuel. I can feel that." She lifted it to her lips and blew a soft note. The sound mingled with the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant call of a bird, creating a harmony that seemed to echo the quiet connection between them. They spent the afternoon together, not rushing or forcing conversation, but simply enjoying each other's presence. Samuel helped Ayanna gather herbs, learning to distinguish the ones used for healing from those meant only for food. In return, Ayanna listened as Samuel described the work on the ranch, the challenges of caring for the cattle, and the satisfaction of completing a day's hard labor. As the hours passed, a subtle tension began to grow between them. Samuel found himself wanting to reach out, to touch her hand or shoulder, yet he held back, aware of the delicate balance between friendship and something deeper. Ayanna, too, felt an unexpected pull towards Samuel, a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and cautious longing. She noticed the way his eyes lingered on her, the unspoken words in his gaze, and a flutter in her chest she had not felt in years. Yet she reminded herself to be careful, to maintain respect, and to honor the boundaries her people had set. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills and the sky turned shades of orange and pink, Samuel and Ayanna walked along the creek in silence. The sound of water over rocks filled the quiet spaces between their footsteps. Finally, Samuel spoke, his voice low and thoughtful. "Ayanna, I have something to tell you," he began. I feel something for you, something more than friendship. I do not know if it is right, but I cannot ignore it." Ayanna stopped walking, her eyes fixed on the rippling water. She could feel her heart quicken, and for a moment words failed her. Finally, she whispered, I feel it too, Samuel, but it is complicated. We come from different worlds. There are expectations, histories, and traditions. We cannot ignore them." Samuel nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I know," he said softly, "and I do not want to rush or force anything. I only want you to know how I feel, and I want to respect your feelings always." Ayanna looked at him, her gaze steady yet filled with emotion. "I know," she replied, "and I trust you. That is why I can speak honestly, but we must be careful. The world may not understand us. My people, your community, they will notice. We cannot let our feelings create problems for either of us." They continued walking, side by side, their hands brushing occasionally but never fully touching. Each movement carried a weight of unspoken emotions, a tension between desire and respect. They were learning that love was not only about words or gestures, but about patience, understanding, and restraint. In the days that followed, Samuel and Ayanna's connection deepened through small acts of care. Samuel would leave gifts for her near the creek, fresh fruit, a carefully carved stone, or a simple sketch of the landscape. Ayanna, in return, shared knowledge about the stars, the movement of animals, and the subtle signs of changing weather. These exchanges, though quiet and simple, strengthened their bond in ways that words could not capture. One afternoon, as they rested under the shade of a large tree, Samuel looked at Ayanna and spoke gently. "I have never known someone like you," he said. Your presence, it changes how I see everything. The land, the sky, even myself. You make me feel alive in ways I cannot explain." Gianna's eyes softened, and she looked away briefly before meeting his gaze again. "And you, Samuel, teach me patience and understanding. You do not rush me or judge me. You listen and care. That is rare." A moment of silence passed between them, filled with the unspoken acknowledgement of feelings that neither fully expressed. They both understood that their emotions were growing stronger, yet they also knew the importance of restraint. Their connection was delicate, like a fragile plant that needed careful nurturing to survive and flourish. As the summer days continued, the bond between Samuel and Ayanna became a source of quiet strength for both of them. Samuel found himself more aware of the beauty around him. The way the light shifted on the hills, the sound of the creek, the subtle changes in the weather. Ayanna, too, discovered new joy in her daily life, knowing that she had someone who valued her knowledge, respected her boundaries, and shared her moments of laughter and discovery. Yet beneath this growing closeness, both Samuel and Ayanna wrestled with internal conflicts. Samuel often wondered if his feelings were appropriate, if he could ever bridge the gap between their worlds. Ayanna struggled with the fear of judgment from her people, and the uncertainty of navigating her emotions in a world that did not easily accept connections like theirs. Despite these challenges, they continued to meet, to learn from one another, and to grow in trust and understanding. Each encounter strengthened their bond, each shared moment deepened their connection, and each unspoken glance carried a weight of longing and care. One evening, as the sun set behind the distant hills, Samuel and Ayanna sat together on a large rock overlooking the creek. The sky was painted in brilliant shades of orange and purple, and the water reflected the colors like a mirror. Samuel took a deep breath and spoke quietly. "Ayanna, I do not know what the future holds," he said, "but I know that I care for you, more than I have ever cared for anyone, and I want to be here for you in whatever way you allow." Ayanna looked at him, her eyes glistening with emotion. "I care for you too, Samuel," she whispered, "and I feel safe with you. That is something I have not felt in a long time, but we must be patient and respectful. Our bond is strong, but the world outside this creek is not always kind." They sat together in silence, letting the moment settle around them. There was a quiet understanding that love, trust, and connection could exist even in a world filled with challenges and expectations. Their feelings were real, but they were learning that expressing them required care, patience, and respect. As night fell and stars began to twinkle in the vast sky, Samuel and Ayanna parted ways with a gentle nod and a promise to meet again. Both returned to their respective lives, carrying the warmth of their connection in their hearts, and knowing that the days ahead would bring new challenges, discoveries, and moments of shared understanding. Part 3 of their story marked a turning point. Hidden feelings had surfaced, tensions had grown, and both Samuel and Ayanna were learning to navigate the delicate space between desire and restraint. Their bond was stronger than ever, yet it required careful attention, patience, and an unwavering respect for one another. In the quiet of the night, both reflected on the lessons of the day, about trust, patience, understanding, and the power of a connection that transcended boundaries. Though the path ahead was uncertain, they were ready to face it together, step by step, moment by moment, knowing that love could be nurtured not only through words or actions but through presence, respect, and shared understanding. The days had grown longer, and the sun now lingered over the horizon, casting golden light across Samuel's ranch. The land was alive with the sounds of summer, birds singing, the rustle of leaves, the occasional lowing of cattle in the distance. Samuel had grown used to the rhythm of his work, but even amidst the busyness of the ranch, his thoughts often wandered to Ayanna. Each moment with her was like a quiet treasure, and yet, he realized, his feelings were becoming harder to contain. Ayanna felt the same tension in her heart. She had learned to measure her trust carefully, to live within the boundaries set by her people and the world around them. Yet the more time she spent with Samuel, the more her heart whispered truths she could not ignore. There was comfort in his presence, a strength in his patience, and a warmth in his eyes that drew her closer, even as she reminded herself to remain cautious. One evening, as the sky turned brilliant shades of pink and orange, Samuel arrived at the creek earlier than usual. The air was thick with the scent of wildflowers and the quiet hum of summer insects. He spotted Ayanna gathering herbs near the water, her movements deliberate, graceful, and familiar. Seeing her there so absorbed in her task, Samuel felt a mixture of admiration, longing, and nervous anticipation. "Good evening, Ayanna," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. She looked up, her eyes lighting up briefly at the sight of him. "Good evening, Samuel," she replied. "The day is fading, the land looks beautiful in the sunset." Samuel smiled, though his chest felt tight with emotion. "It is beautiful," he said. "But not as beautiful as you." The words slipped out before he could stop them, and immediately he felt a pang of nervousness, unsure how she would react. Ayanna paused, her hands stilling over the herbs. Her eyes widened slightly and she looked away, as if trying to gather her thoughts. Then, after a long moment, she whispered, "Samuel." Her voice carried both surprise and a quiet curiosity. Samuel took a cautious step closer, keeping his tone gentle. I need to tell you something," he said. "I have tried to keep it in my heart to respect your space and the boundaries between us, but I cannot hide it anymore. I love you, Ayanna. I have for some time. I respect you, I admire you, and my heart is yours if you will allow it." Ayanna's breath caught. Her heart raced, and a swirl of emotions washed over her: joy, fear, confusion, and longing. She had felt the same way for weeks, maybe months, but she had never spoken it aloud. She had feared the consequences, the judgments of others, and the delicate balance they had maintained. Now, hearing Samuel's confession, all those fears mingled with the undeniable pull of her own feelings. She turned her gaze to him, steady and searching, and whispered, "Then, why didn't you touch me?" The words were soft, almost hesitant, yet carried the weight of a question she had been carrying in her heart for a long time. It was not an accusation, but a reflection of her longing and her wonder at the restraint he had shown. Samuel paused, taking in her words. His heart ached at the thought of her wondering, yet he felt a deep sense of pride and relief that she could speak so honestly. "Because I respect you," he said quietly. "Because I care for you too deeply to rush anything or to make you feel pressured. I want us to be certain to understand each other fully before we take any step further. My love is not just words, Ayanna, it is patience, respect, and trust." Ayanna felt tears prick the corners of her eyes, though she did not let them fall. She had never experienced such honesty and care. Most people acted on impulse, driven by desire or fleeting emotions. Samuel's love, however, was steady, considerate, and profound. In that moment she realized that this bond, this connection, was rare, something to be cherished and nurtured rather than rushed or forced. I feel the same, Samuel," she said softly. "I have tried to hide it to protect myself, but my heart knows the truth. I care for you more than I expected, more than I can fully explain." Samuel smiled, relief and warmth flooding his chest. "Then we are both honest," he said, "and that is the beginning. We can grow together, slowly, carefully, and always with respect. There is no need to rush, Ayanna. What we have, it is stronger than any moment of haste. It can last if we allow it." For a while they sat together in silence, watching the water flow gently over the rocks, feeling the breeze whisper through the trees, and letting the weight of their emotions settle into something quiet, solid, and true. The world around them seemed to pause. The rustling leaves, the soft calls of birds, even the distant sounds of the ranch faded into a peaceful background. In the following days, Samuel and Ayanna continued their routine by the creek, but now there was a deeper understanding between them. Every glance, every word, carried the unspoken acknowledgement of their feelings. Their bond was no longer just friendship. It had grown into love, tempered by respect and patience. Samuel's care, Ayanna's trust, and the lessons they had learned from each other now intertwined in a delicate but strong connection. Samuel found himself thinking of ways to show his love without overwhelming her. He would bring small gifts, a carefully carved piece of wood, a basket of fresh fruit, or a collection of wildflowers, symbols of thoughtfulness rather than grand gestures. Ayanna, in return, shared more of her knowledge and herself, teaching him about the stars, the cycles of the land, and the small secrets of the forest. Every shared moment strengthened the bond that had been forged through trust and care. One evening, as twilight settled over the land, Samuel spoke softly. "Ayanna, I do not know what tomorrow will bring, but tonight I want you to know that I am here. I will be here, and I will always honor your heart, your trust, and the connection we share." Ayanna looked at him, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "And I will be here too," she whispered. "I trust you, Samuel. I feel safe with you, and that is something I have never felt before." The stars began to appear, one by one, dotting the deep blue sky. The world seemed vast, yet intimate in that moment. Samuel and Ayanna sat together, letting the silence speak for them, feeling the depth of their emotions without needing words to define them further. Though they had confessed their feelings, both understood that the journey ahead would not always be easy. There were societal pressures, expectations from families and communities, and the challenges of navigating a world that often failed to understand such connections. Yet the foundation they had built, honesty, respect, patience, and love, would guide them through the uncertainties. That night, when Samuel returned to the ranch, he felt a quiet joy unlike anything he had known before. His heart was full, yet calm, strengthened by the knowledge that their connection was mutual, sincere, and enduring. Ayanna, too, returned to her people with a sense of peace and hope, knowing that she had someone who valued her entirely, not just her presence, but her thoughts, her heart, and her spirit. Part 4 marked a turning point in their story. The confession had brought clarity, the questions had opened paths for honesty, and their bond had deepened into a love that was patient, careful, and true. Samuel and Ayanna now faced the future together, not rushing, not forcing, but embracing the growth of their connection, step by step, moment by moment. Even in the quiet of night, as each lay in their respective spaces, both thought of the other. Samuel imagined Ayanna tending to her herbs, the soft smile she gave him, the grace in her movements. Ayanna remembered Samuel's gentle words, the steady presence that had become her anchor, and the trust she felt in his unwavering care. In these thoughts, they found comfort, hope, and the knowledge that their love, though restrained, was real and strong. And so the story continued, marked by the beauty of honesty, the strength of respect, and the quiet power of love that did not need to be rushed, forced, or proven in haste. Samuel and Ayanna had found each other, not by accident, but through patience, care, and a shared understanding of what it meant to truly see and value another soul. The summer air was warm and fragrant, carrying the scents of wildflowers, fresh grass, and the earth itself. Samuel's ranch was alive with the quiet sounds of daily life, the soft lowing of cattle, the fluttering wings of birds, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the evening breeze. Though the work remained demanding, Samuel's heart was lighter than it had been for years. The connection he shared with Ayanna had grown steadily, rooted in patience, understanding, and the quiet acknowledgement of their love. Ayanna, too, carried a new sense of hope. Though her life remained bound by the traditions and expectations of her people, she had discovered a companion in Samuel, a person who respected her heart, her boundaries, and her spirit. Their bond had deepened beyond mere friendship, yet it had grown carefully, naturally, and respectfully, teaching both of them the power of patience and trust. One afternoon, Samuel arrived at the creek earlier than usual, carrying a small basket of bread, fresh fruit, and a simple wooden carving he had made that morning. The sun was high, casting gentle warmth across the water, and the land shimmered with the golden light of summer. Gianna was already there, tending to her herbs with her usual careful attention. She looked up as Samuel approached, her eyes softening at the sight of him. "Good afternoon, Samuel," she greeted him quietly. "Good afternoon, Ayana," he replied, placing the basket beside her and smiling. "I brought some bread and fruit. And this," he added, holding up the carving, "I made for you this morning. A simple horse to remind us of freedom and the beauty of the land we share." Gianna took the carving carefully, her fingers brushing the smooth wood. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "You always make things with care, Samuel. I can feel that in everything you do." They spent the afternoon together, gathering herbs, sharing small stories, and enjoying the quiet rhythm of the creek. Samuel felt a sense of peace he had never known before, and Ayana felt the same quiet joy in his presence. Their love, though unspoken in grand gestures, was present in every smile, every gentle glance, and every shared moment. As the weeks passed, their bond became stronger. Samuel began to consider ways to bring their worlds closer together. He knew that Ayana's people might be wary of his presence, and that the town would gossip about their friendship. Yet he also knew that love required courage, not only to express feelings, but to act with integrity and respect. One evening, Samuel invited Ayana to walk with him beyond the creek, into a quiet stretch of land where the wildflowers grew tall and the air smelled sweet with summer blooms. "I want to show you something," he said softly, his eyes reflecting the warm light of the setting sun. Ayana followed, curious and cautious, yet trusting. They walked together, the soft grass beneath their feet, the colors of the sky blending with the gentle green of the fields. Samuel stopped near a small hill overlooking the ranch. From there one could see the creek, the cattle grazing in the distance, and the endless stretch of land bathed in golden light. "This land," Samuel said, gesturing broadly, "is part of my life, and now a part of it is yours as well. Not because I own it, but because I want to share it with you. We can learn from each other, care for it together, and walk through life side by side, as friends, as partners, as companions." Gianna felt tears prick her eyes. She had never imagined that anyone would offer such an honest, gentle invitation. "Samuel, I do not know what to say," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You honor me, your heart, and the land. I am grateful. I trust you, and I want to be here, with you, in the way you speak of." Samuel reached out, offering his hand gently. Gianna hesitated for only a moment before taking it. It was a simple touch, full of meaning, an acknowledgement of trust, of love, and of the quiet bond they had nurtured together. In that moment, neither spoke, letting the connection between them fill the space with warmth, understanding, and hope. The days continued, marked by shared experiences and quiet companionship. Samuel would bring Ayana small gifts, bread, fruit, a carved stone, or a simple sketch of the landscape. She, in return, taught him more about the rhythms of nature, the signs of the seasons, and the wisdom of her people. They laughed together, learned together, and grew in a bond that neither time nor circumstance could easily weaken. Though their love was no longer hidden in the heart, they were careful with how they expressed it in the world. Samuel continued his work on the ranch, and Ayana respected her people's traditions, all the while knowing that their connection was real, meaningful, and enduring. They discovered that love could exist quietly, without the need for grand gestures or public declarations. Sometimes it thrived in the patience, respect, and shared understanding of everyday life. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills and the sky turned shades of deep orange and purple, Samuel and Ayana sat together on a flat rock near the creek. The air was calm, and the sounds of the evening, The soft rush of water, the chirping of crickets, the distant calls of birds returning to their nests created a peaceful symphony. Samuel looked at Ayanna, his heart full. "I know we cannot control the world outside this place," he said softly. "There will always be challenges, expectations, and judgments. But here, now, we can be ourselves. We can care for each other, respect each other, and grow together. That is what matters most." Ayanna nodded, her eyes reflecting both the fading light and the depth of her emotions. "Yes," she whispered, what we have is precious. It is strong even when the world may not understand it, and that is enough for me. I trust you, Samuel. And I will be here, walking beside you, step by step." The evening passed in quiet conversation and shared smiles. Samuel and Ayanna spoke of dreams, hopes, and the small joys of life. They did not rush, did not force anything beyond what felt natural. Their connection, built over weeks and months of care, patience, and understanding, had grown into a love that was enduring, respectful, and deeply meaningful. As night fell, Samuel escorted Ayanna to the edge of her territory, ensuring she reached safely to her people. "Until tomorrow," he asked softly, his voice carrying both hope and certainty. "Until tomorrow," she replied, a gentle smile on her lips. That night both returned to their respective homes with hearts full of quiet joy. Samuel sat by the fire in his cabin, thinking of Ayanna's laughter, the light in her eyes, and the calm strength she brought into his life. Ayanna, lying in her own space, thought of Samuel's gentle words, his steady presence, and the unwavering respect he showed her. In these reflections, they found comfort, hope, and a quiet certainty that their connection would endure. The following weeks brought more shared experiences, exploring parts of the land together, learning from each other, and enjoying the simple pleasures of life. Samuel repaired fences and cared for the cattle, while Ayanna taught him about plants, the movement of animals, and the signs of the changing seasons. They discovered joy in the quiet moments, watching the sunset, listening to the creek, or simply sitting together under the shade of a tree. Despite the challenges outside their little world, Samuel and Ayanna's bond became a source of strength. Samuel felt more alive than he had in years, inspired by the depth of their connection and the lessons he had learned from Ayanna. Ayanna felt more at peace than she had in a long time, knowing that her heart was understood and respected by someone who truly cared. Part 5 marked a hopeful and meaningful conclusion to their journey thus far. Samuel and Ayanna had faced uncertainty, navigated hidden feelings, and spoken truths that required courage and patience. They had learned that love could be gentle, respectful, and enduring, thriving not through haste or force, but through understanding, trust, and shared experiences. In the quiet of the night, as stars sparkled above the vast land, both knew that their story was only beginning. Though the world beyond the creek could be harsh and unforgiving, they had found a bond strong enough to endure, a love built on patience, honesty, and mutual respect. And in that knowledge, they felt a deep and lasting peace, ready to face whatever the future held together. And so, their story, once a quiet friendship by the creek, had blossomed into a profound and enduring love. Samuel and Ayanna walked forward, hand in hand, hearts full of hope, and spirits strengthened by the connection they had nurtured. A love that was patient, kind, and resilient, and one that would guide them through the days to come.